Hello there, I'm Limmy, and this is my favourite YouTube channel.
I wonder what you guys think about the idea that manipulatives across a school can benefit from the choices of those manipulatives being somewhat parsimonious. So rather than having lots and lots and lots and lots of different manipulatives, I mean, I particularly further up the school, because further down the school, you absolutely want a wide array of experiences to build the bedrock of experience upon which mathematics, as we've already discussed, is based. But I wonder whether further up the school in particular, having two or three or whatever it might be, types of manipulative that you have carefully trained the teachers to use, that the teachers are confident in using, is perhaps more achievable than having more that through inevitably the teachers are slightly less confident with and have slightly less professional development upon. What are your thoughts on that, guys?
Well, I think if you take your initial point at the start of this episode and choosing things for a purpose and having that big picture and consistency, I think you get to the point where you only have a select few resources that you utilize based on what you want to achieve. You know, for instance, I'm thinking double-sided counters and Cuisenaire can show the same idea in different ways. And really, I don't necessarily think you want to do both all the time. You know, so I think you end up in the situation where your models and images reflect what you prioritized in the curriculum. And so yeah, you know, and even early on, Chris, I think there are lots of manipulatives that allow pupils to develop their one-to-one correspondence, those principles of counting. But I think when you get down to what's really important in terms of their mathematical development, you know, you'll maybe have 3 or 4 representations that can do many jobs as you go through. You know, thinking of 10 frame and its utilization in year 1 and its utilization in year 5. It's the same idea, but just in a much more complex scenario by the time you get to year 5. But actually, if they're familiar with that early on, it makes the next time, you know, you jump through some of the hoops you need to get to the end of the track, so to speak.
Yeah, I think really I would just echo that. I think that you would have to have a very good reason why you think I would choose this manipulative that children are unfamiliar with over that one that they are familiar with. And only if it was showing a very specific mathematical structure in a way that was very clear, would I then introduce a new manipulative for those reasons. And I think it's just having that, it's really someone mapping out that journey to some extent, you know, in a way that's specific to the school, but bearing in mind that every time we add resources that children are not familiar with and not used to using, we add potentially a lot of extra load. And so just kind of thought to that, I think is important.
Amy Bills was making fun of the title of the CPAL chapter in my book because I went so far and included literally everything that is involved in it so that no one could just say, I use this approach, you know, because very often, you know, people say I use CPAL, not necessarily, you know, as effectively as you might hope. And I think I'm always banging on about take your time, development happens over the long period. If you just got one manipulative and focused on it in your CPD sessions and you revisited it, you know, across the year, how have we utilized this? Are we getting better at it? You know, by the end of 4 years, you've got staff who are really good at using some core representations, some core tools. So I think, yeah, whenever I'm listening to you speak, Gareth, I'm thinking, yeah, take your time. You know, you come in, Gareth, and you show here are all the possibilities with the 10 frames, and then you get really good at using 10 frames. And then the year after, well, let's look at Cuisenaire. And I think Cuisenaire is one of those ones that you could spend 3 years, you know, trying to get really good at it. And certainly I've been using them for a while. When I see people who've been using them for 20, 30 years, I'm like, oh my goodness, you know, there's still so much I don't know about this.
The other thing that I would just mention as well is around, I think it's easy to see when we're talking about manipulatives, to see it through the lens of me as a teacher. And let's say I'm in year 5 and to be able to see what I think will work really well. And what we naturally don't see, because we just don't have that perspective, is what the child's journey has been up until that point, and the different experiences that they've had, and what I do now, how does it build on what they've experienced to date? And I think like being able one way or another to have that lens of what is this individual child experience, what's their journey, and how do I fit into that within the use of manipulatives as well is a really important piece.